Algebra Lesson 13, reviewing uses of negative signs. So basically, this first part of this lesson is quite simple. We've done this before, where when we multiply something like this, just make sure we start from the inside and work out. One thing to keep in mind with these ones is that if there's just a negative, it is just like there was a negative 1. So here, it would just be the same thing as negative 1 times negative 7, which is negative 1 times negative 7 is 7. And now this is all eliminated, these negatives, and now we do, so 7 multiplied by negative 1 is negative 7. Now negative 7 multiplied by negative 1 is 7. So the answer is 7. If they're consecutive this way, just take a look at it. If there's an even number of them, then it will become positive. If there's an odd number of them, it will become negative. Now let's try one more here. This, I know before the shutdown there was a lot of questions about what does it mean if there's just a negative there, isn't it? Just what do we do? Why do we have to do distributive property? And I told some of you that we're going to learn it yet, and this is where it comes. So basically, now you would have to do distributive property this way, and except there is just a negative there. So really what this does is it simply changes the symbols. So simply said, this would be negative 3x plus 4, because negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. So that takes care of the first part. Go ahead and do that on your own, and then we're going to jump into the second part. I'll just write it onto the board. So this next part, we have some bigger things to simplify, expressions to simplify, but we can't simplify them yet. And therefore, as this lesson indicates by its title, reviewing the use of negative signs, we need to somehow insert a negative here so we can actually cross something out. Sounds confusing. Let's try it. So what two things could we possibly just switch around and they will be the same thing? Now, if we multiply it by negative 1. So this and this is not the same. It is reversed with both a negative sign. Therefore, if we reverse this to have the 2x in the beginning, we would have negative 2x plus 7. So as of right now, they cannot be simplified. But how can we simplify them then? We can switch these around, switch the signs, but also insert a negative 1. How do we do that? Let's try. So rewrite the top, 2x minus 7, x minus 1, over, and then, now insert your negative 1 for the bottom one. Always insert the negative 1 for the bottom. Let's do this. Negative 1, and now let's flip the signs for this one. Negative 7 plus 2x. This is essentially the same thing. This and this is absolutely the exact same thing. How? If we multiply negative 1 by negative 7, we get a positive 7. Negative 1 multiplied by 2x is negative 2x. So the only reason we're doing this is to help us simplify further. So now if we reverse this one, now we have a 2x and a 2x, a negative 7 and a negative 7. Therefore, we can cross them out. We did this crossing out the other day. Now this is just with the negatives yet. Cross those out, and our answer would be what we have at the top. You don't necessarily have to have them in parentheses, but you can. And x plus 1. The only thing we missed now yet is our negative. So make it a negative, and you're done. Might seem confusing as of right now. We'll get it yet. We have quite a few to practice on, and we'll do another one on the board. So this one is slightly different. We know that we need to factor the top into two binomials. So let's do that. X is at the top. What two numbers can we multiply to get -6 and add or subtract to get x, or 1? Pretty sure it's 2 and 3. Because this is a negative, the larger one must be a negative. There we go. Now, let's find the greatest common factor in here and then factor it that way. 12 and 4, 4 goes into 12 3 times. So we have 4, we have 3 left over, minus, and then 4 times what equals -4x, -x. So now, we would be ready to simplify, but the only problem is that this is in reverse. We have a 3 and there's a -3, and here we have an x, -x, and there we just have an x. So what do we do? Same thing as we did here. Insert a -1 and flip the signs of the bottom one. So let's rewrite the top, x plus 2 and x minus 3, and then here 4, insert a -1 and then flip this. -3 plus x. Now we can simplify. -3 and a -3 and an x and a positive x. So let's do that. What do we have at the top? X plus 2 and 4 multiplied by -1 is -4. This negative can be either in front of or beside here. And this can be in parentheses, like this, or it does not need to be. It's your preference, or how it makes most sense to you, but there is no rule to that. So let's do another one. I'll write it onto the board, and then we'll go further. So this is the last one I'm going to do with you, and this one seems a whole lot more confusing. Why? Is because there is so many x's, so many ones, and there's way too much. It's too much the same, and it's hard to get. So let's factor this. Since both of them are perfect squares, and there's a negative sign in the center, we just do 2 sets of these. One's a positive, and one's a negative, and then we have our perfect square at the front, and a perfect square at the back. Same thing with this one, just the opposite way around. Our positive and negative, a perfect square at the front, and a perfect square at the back. Now, these two are already the same, so we just keep it that way. And we cross them out, because we can. Now, because this one's flipped, because we have a negative x and an x, and a -1 and a 1. So we can, let me squish x minus 1, okay. Let me squish a -1 right here. And then, if we squish a -1 in, we change the signs over here. Negative and a positive. Now, can we simplify these two now? We have a +1 and a +1, a -x and a -x. Yes. Go ahead and cross those out. And what do we have left? Is a 1 at the bottom. So, a -1. 1 divided by -1 is -1. There you go. So, go ahead and do the rest on your own. Make sure if they are opposites. Let's say we have a y minus 2, over a 2 minus y. Probably be in parentheses. Now, they aren't perfect opposites. So now what you do is multiply it, put a -1 there, leave it there, but also switch these guys. Now you can cross them out. And then make sure you always leave that negative in there as well. Go ahead and do the rest of the lesson on your own.